In the arms of the angel, fly away from here. Greetings and salutations. Once again, it is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange, and the host who might be a Nazgul. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all manner of strange and unusual literature that I have found in my trek across Middle Earth. In case you are unaware, I am talking about the Lord of the Rings, Lord of the Rings still. Yes, that 3 or 6 book series about one man's journey across all of Middle Earth to dispose of substandard jewelry. So yeah, this is I'm still talking about it. Previously on this little mini series I got going on, I talked about the first book in the series, what I thought of it, how it was a little slow, but it got better as it went on. And I also talked about how it ended, which was the first book ends with Aragorn taking the hobbits to the ford as they're chased by Nazgul, the Dark Riders as they were called at the time. And Frodo passes out as they are saved by a rush of water. So what happens there? Let's get straight to the point. So Fellowship begins with Frodo waking up at Elrond's house. He is in Rivendell now. As it turns out, the rush of water that came his way was Elrond, who sort of controls the elements around him, so he managed to send the Nazgul away with a rush of water. Apparently, the elves have magical abilities that I'm not 100% on, so don't quote me there. But Frodo wakes up and he sees Gandalf, who is finally there after his long absence of doing God knows what. Gods knows what. So there's multiple gods there. Aragorn is also there, and Gandalf informs him that Aragorn is actually royalty. So he's like the king, the prince who was promised, or something like that. So he has a lot of he's basically promised to be the ruler of Middle Earth one day. I think is how it goes. And he's also kind of engaged to be married to Arwen. I don't know how sure that is, but they were flirting with each other, and that's what I know from the movies. He also he meets a whole bunch of people like Glorfindel and Arwen again, and Gloin, who went on the journey with Bilbo in The Hobbit. And he's Gimli's father. And Gimli is there as well, a nice, cool dwarf who is in somewhat of a conflict with the elves because they have had a rocky relationship in the past. Bilbo is also in Rivendell. It seems like this is his last stage of life right here. Something really interesting is that Bilbo starts asking about the ring, and like Frodo shows him, and like Bilbo's like, I want it, and it's showing the power of the ring right there, which I think is a wonderful bit of writing on Tolkien's part, because he's able to still highlight like the lasting effects of the ring. Like once you had it, you gotta keep it. Kind of like Gollum. At this point, the Council of Elrond begins, which is a great way to learn about the lore. It's a massive info dump, in my opinion, just because Elrond and the Ring Crew just tell you a whole bunch of information about Middle Earth that I'll try to summarize here, but again, I don't know all of it, and you probably, if you're watching this, you probably read it, or you're probably interested, in which case just go find the Council of Elrond chapter and read it. So Elrond tells the tale of the ring in the Second Age, how it came to be, how Sauron created it and deceived everybody about it, and it sort of enslaved the men who he gave the ring to, and they became the Nazgul, and essentially a war broke out, and it ended with Isildur, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Like he cut the ring off Sauron, and Elrond thought he was going to go take it to the Mount Doom, and unfortunately, Isildur did not do that. He was corrupted by the ring, so Elrond kind of just said, "Oh, well, this must be all of humanity's fault," and never bothered to once track down the ring in the 3,000 years he's been alive. And that's not even, like, Elrond apparently is way older than that, because he says he's been alive for multiple ages, and if each age lasts about 3,000 years, the dude must be 6,000 plus years old, which is ridiculous. But that's beside the point. But, like, you can't swear a blood oath against humanity and then never follow up on where the ring is at. Elrond, you fool. And Gandalf talks about how he spent 18 years. I had the question in the first video. I had a question about how, what was Gandalf doing during those 18 years? And it turns out he was tracking down information about the ring. I don't know why he didn't just go to Elrond, especially because Elrond knew that information. But I guess he just wanted to hide it, or he was guilty about it for some reason. Although Elrond doesn't strike me as someone who is capable of feeling guilt. Anyways, a lot of his, like, missteps were due to the fact that Saruman was possibly deceiving him in a lot of ways, misleading him. Saruman is a wizard just like him, but he was corrupted by Sauron. So he and he's like, "Oh, join me, Gandalf, and we can take the ring for ourselves and control all of Middle Earth." And Gandalf's like, "Nah, dog, I don't think I'm gonna do that." And so, Saruman tries to kill him, but Gandalf manages to escape and get back to Elrond's house. At one point, they consider giving the ring to Bombadil. Like, I think Frodo mentions that. And again, that was another question that I had at the in the last video I did, which was like, Bombadil seems like a god of some sorts, and he's unaffected by the ring. Just give it to him, and his enchanted forest could just protect them forever. And Elrond notes that, like, Bombadil kind of is a god, so I was right in my kind of assumption there. Bombadil, like, won't be affected by the ring, but that also, because of that, he won't understand the significance of the ring. And like he because he chooses to isolate himself from the world, like, he's not going to understand why people are in a hubbub about it. So he's incapable of feeling the emotions required to protect the ring. And even if he was able to, Sauron would, like Elrond says, Sauron would just come in and try to destroy the forest with as much force as possible, and he might succeed. Like, Bombadil might not be able to take on Sauron by himself and Sauron's forces by himself, which I think is interesting. It still raises a number of questions about, like, why Bombadil exists in the first place. If it just seems to undermine the message of the ring. Tolkien has a lot to explain there, in my opinion. They ultimately decide the ring has to be destroyed the same way it was made, by casting it into Mount Doom. Created in the same fire, or destroyed in the same fires that created it. That's what Elrond and the group decide. And so Elrond seeks volunteers to go into Mordor to destroy it, which is practically a suicide mission at this point. And Frodo volunteers because Frodo is a super cool dude, and at this point he kind of feels like it's his responsibility. Even though there's a sense of dread, knowing that this is probably going to kill him. The other hobbits volunteer, and so does Aragorn, and so does Legolas, and Gimli, and Gandalf. There's 9 ring keepers on here. So, and there's also Boromir, who just kind of showed up at Elrond's house. Not a lot is known about him, and, like, you don't really find out much about him throughout the course of this book, which I do think is a down point there. In another time jump, like 2 months seemingly pass. It was October, and now it's December, and the ring crew, the Fellowship, is ready to proceed forth on their trip. I don't know why it took 2 months. Probably something to do with the growing sense of evil in the world, but, you know, I'm not gonna I'm not going to really question that anymore. So they end up traveling to Caradhras. It's a giant mountain, and it's very snowy, and like Saruman is sort of watching them and sending birds after them, and it's not a fun time to be had by anyone. So they decide, like, what are our options? We could stay outside and possibly freeze and get hurt, or we could go inside to the mines of Moria, which there's a lot of legend about. And there's a sense, again, another sense of dread within the entire fellowship because they don't know what they're going to find down there. They get down to the mines of Moria. They read about some of the lore about how the dwarves like encountered an ancient evil and were kind of destroyed because of it. There's a lot of Gimli is particularly unhappy because these were like his kinmen, and now they're all presumably dead. Along the way, they as they're making their way through, they fight some orcs, and there's also this sense of like these drums beating, and it's making the sound doom. So like doom, 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 doom. So it's very like heart pounding, and like it would be very disorienting to be in the mines of Moria during all of this. And as they cross the bridge of Khazam-Dum, I believe it's called, which is a wonderful name. Khazam-Dum, sorry. As they cross it, it's a wonderful name. A Balrog appears, which is just this giant fire monster, which the dwarves encountered, and it killed them because of their sort of greed, I guess. And Gandalf says, "Get out of here, everyone! I will take care of it." And he's like, "You cannot pass! You cannot pass!" And he ends up like destroying the bridge, which causes the Balrog to just fall into the abyss. And it looks pretty good until the Balrog manages to catch Gandalf as he's falling, and Gandalf falls and dies as well, which throughout the rest of the book leaves this giant gaping hole that Gandalf had filled, but they're sorely missing now. So that's the first fatality on the trip to Mount Doom. Anyways, the next thing that happens is that once they get out of the mines of Moria, they manage to make it to Lothlorien, which is an elvish realm where the elves aren't particularly fond of Gimli. And there's a lot of elvish racism, interracial hatred between elves and dwarves. And it causes a lot of conflict between Legolas and Gimli at first, but they become friends over the course of this book, and probably over the course of the series. They leave Lothlorien, and as they're leaving, Boromir confronts Frodo, and like as he mentioned at the Council of Elrond, he suggests, "Oh well, maybe give the ring to the humans and like Minas Tirith. And we could possibly use it to defeat Sauron's forces," and Frodo shrugs him off initially. They eventually arrive in, Amon Hen, I believe it's called, where they're at a point where they're like, we have to choose the direction we're going. Are we going to go to Minas Tirith like Boromir wants? Because Boromir is kind of persistent about that. You don't know a lot about his backstory, but he apparently really wants to go there. But Frodo is like, we got to go to Mount Doom so that we can destroy the ring. And I believe Aragorn also has his own personal preference. But they're at this point where they have to make that decision. And Frodo goes off and tries to consider it on his own. But Boromir follows him and is like, okay, well, let's go there. Surely you understand that we have to protect Minas Tirith and the people of Middle-earth. This is an important decision to make. And Frodo's like, I understand, but we still have to go to Mount Doom. And Boromir gets angry about this. Like, he's like, you insolent halfling, you are ruining everything. And it like if you get the underneath like the subtext here, it's clear the ring is influencing him even from afar. And so like but still Boromir is angry, and like Frodo, fearful of all this, like puts on the ring and runs away, and Boromir is just like, I didn't mean to do it, I'm sorry. And as Frodo is sort of wandering around again, he sees like everything before him, the giant eye of Sauron, and he sees like evil spreading across the landscape, slowly but surely, and cities falling all around him. And it's so scary to him. It's an interesting moment in the book because it's like, here comes evil taking over everything. And like, Frodo's absolutely right to be scared. And like he chooses at that moment, like, possibly because the ring is isolating him again, like, I'm going to leave on my own. I'm going to Mount Doom. I'm not going to put anyone else's life at risk. This has to be done. And like he ends up going, and Aragorn notices that he's gone. Boromir comes back, but he doesn't fully explain like what happened with Frodo. Kind of a dick move on his part. They all head in separate directions, and Samwise realizes that Frodo's probably at the boat, so they go there, and like Frodo's like, you probably shouldn't have joined me. That's a foolish mistake. And Samwise is like, no, you need a friend to go with you. You need someone to have your back, which is really beautiful. But like it's a great moment of friendship, and like absolutely Frodo does need someone to help him. Like he may not want to put people's lives at risk, but you can't do this on your own. Like that's absurd. And so that's pretty much where the story ends. What's going to happen now that the Fellowship is broken up? We will find out possibly on Wednesday. So make sure to read the first half of The Two Towers by Wednesday, and we will see where we're at then. One thing that really stands out as I was reading this was the power and the evil of the One Ring. You see multiple characters just desiring it and having seeing it influence them very strongly. Bilbo craves it, like he was under its influence for 50 or so years. And even after it's out of his life, it comes back to him, and he briefly turns into like a monster, like a Gollum-y type monster, and it's just like, I need it, like let me have it. When Frodo shows it to him, and I think Bilbo is realizing the effect it's had on him, which is pretty scary, like to be self-aware of that influence it has over you. Boromir also seems to be affected by it. He's lured by its power and the potential it has to help his people across Middle Earth. He particularly says that like he could use it to defeat Sauron when they attack Minas Tirith. And Frodo's like, well, we don't know if that would really solve any problems. It might just create more down the road. And Boromir keeps getting increasingly angry. And the thing is, I can't fault Boromir. Like, I absolutely understand that the power of the ring would want you, like, Boromir can see the evil spreading, and I can absolutely understand that you would want to use that powerful ring to stop evil from hurting the ones you love. So Boromir is definitely affected by it. And there's also Galadriel, who Frodo shows the ring to, and he even offers it to her. But she's like, oh, you would trade you would depose a Dark Lord in favor of a queen. I see how it is. She resists the ring, and I think she considers it a test of her own inner strength to be able to do so. But it takes a lot to resist the calling of the ring. It seems the ring also allows you to sort of see out into the world, possibly what allowed Sauron to maintain his level of power. As Frodo puts it on, and he's able to see the Eye of Sauron and see across the entire of Middle Earth and see the evil spreading. And so, like, through Fellowship of the Ring, like, you see that the ring grants you great power to turn invisible, to see your enemies most likely, and it like has this hold over everyone it comes into contact with, unless you're some forest-dwelling weird god freak like Bombadil, in which case it doesn't have any power at all. And I'll still never understand that. I also like how Tolkien writes the quickening spread of Sauron's evil, how slowly but surely it's overtaking, and before it was like far off in the distance. Now you're beginning to see the shadow of evil, like it's right next door to you. Like Frodo's sting sword, as it's called, like allows him to see when danger's nearby, and it's glowing more and more frequently now, which has to be worrying. So Tolkien does a great job of upping the danger and making everything seem more urgent than it was in the beginning of the story. I will also say the bridge of Khazad-Dum, I believe it is. That chapter is amazing. Just so wonderful. Like everything from the sense of dread of going into Moria to seeing the lore of Moria, to encountering the orcs and the constant doom drumming sound, to the Balrog and Gandalf dying. Like all of that is beautifully written and just wonderful. And I give Tolkien all the credit in the world for it. I can understand through that chapter alone why so many people love The Lord of the Rings. And I really hope that it maintains that level of quality as I continue to read. I am on the fence about the Council of Elrond, specifically how much lore gets dumped on you. It seems like an info dump. There's so much lore about the backstory of the ring and Sauron and the relationship of the elves and the dwarves, and there's just a lot there to chew on. And there's so many characters introduced at that point. It's an info dump, and like it can be hard to get through for sure. But I will say that makes it easier to find out things about Middle Earth, because you're like, where was this located? And you're like, oh, it's the Council of Elrond, and you just go right back there, and it makes things easier to understand, I guess. It's kind of the opposite of a boring introduction where nothing happens. It's just an info dump where everything happens. I would say maybe this is more of a whining complaint on my part, but there's too many characters. There's just so many people and names that you have to know, and that play some part in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I will say the biggest problem here is Boromir. Every other character seems to serve a function on the Fellowship, but Boromir's only function is he keeps demanding that the ring be given to him. And for some unknown reason that Tolkien doesn't care to describe at this point in time, you don't know a lot about Boromir unless you've already seen the movies or already read the books. And so I'm just wondering what's Boromir's intentions to do with the ring. He wants to go to Minas Tirith, but what does he want to do there? What's important to him there? And I'm sure it's explained in future books, but again, I kind of want to know right now rather than waiting 2 or 3 books just to get to that answer. Again, that's kind of whining on my part, but I do think that's important to mention here. And with that, I'm probably going to cut out a lot of stuff because I talked way too much about The Lord of the Rings. But that is the second book, so book 2, so part 2 of Fellowship, where I talked about the summary and the analysis. And overall, I would say it's pretty good. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I would say that it definitely ramped up in quality compared to part 1, book 1, which was mainly introduction. But I do hope that parts 3 through 6 have the same level of energy and inspire and spark my curiosity, much like the second book did, because that would be pretty groovy. And I think it would make me love the series as a whole. But I'm already beginning to see why people love the series. And I'm starting to see what young Mr. Nothing missed out when he did not read these books in high school. Anyways, if you have a comment about something that I said in this video, or if you want to tell me why I'm wrong about the Lord of the Rings series, go ahead and comment below. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to share, and subscribe so that other people may follow along and read with us and go forth on this wonderful, wonderful journey, or continue on this wonderful journey. In the meantime, I wish you the best of luck in your weird travels